So you're thinking about buying or staying in Langley, BC. But families and investors are quietly making a different move. Stick around to the end because one shift is deciding who wins and who gets stuck. Let's get one thing clear immediately. This is not a Langley is dying video, and it's not a fear video. Langley is still one of the strongest family markets in the entire Fraser Valley, but the rules have changed. If you're buying, selling, or investing here in 2026 without understanding the shift, you are guessing, and guessing can become very expensive. Langley didn't crash. Langley lost momentum, and momentum markets can forgive mistakes, whereas normal markets punish them. Langley is now a normal market, and let's prove it with some of the data. These numbers are straight from the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board, December of 2025. In 2023, Langley had 711 active listings. In 2024, that jumped to 920, and in 2025, Langley is sitting at 1,100 active listings. That is a 55% increase in inventory in just over 2 years. That's not a blip. That is supply returning to the market. More supply means more choice. More choice means more negotiation, and more negotiation means more sellers competing. Now let's look at some of the prices. Langley median prices in 2023 were $740,000. 2024 they were $844,000, and in 2025 they were $850,000. That is a massive 14% jump, followed by basically nothing. Prices did not collapse, but appreciation flatlined. And this is the shift. Inventory is up, prices are flat, and rates are still high. That combination kills momentum. A lot of people think people are leaving Langley because it's bad. Well, they're not. They're leaving because the math stopped working. Families don't buy houses. They buy monthly life, mortgage, food, gas, childcare, activities. And when payments stay high and appreciation disappears, families ask a simple question: is it still worth it? And for a lot of the families in this area, the answer is no. So they move to Abbotsford, Mission, Chilliwack, Maple Ridge, where you can get the same lifestyle with less pressure. Now let's talk about the crime in Langley, because this is where the internet gets a little bit sloppy. There's a narrative that Langley is getting worse. However, that narrative isn't necessarily correct. According to Statistics Canada, Langley City's crime severity index and total crime rate are at their lowest level in over 25 years. Violent crime is down, total crime is down, and the crime severity index dropped to 108.71 in 2024, one of the lowest readings we've seen since tracking began. So let's be clear on this point. People are not leaving Langley because it's unsafe. Crime is not the driver. But here's where nuance matters. Markets don't move on data alone. They move on perception. And when people are financially stretched, perception matters more. Which brings us to the SkyTrain, because this is where expectations get people in trouble. Anytime SkyTrain expansion is mentioned, people just assume prices are going to skyrocket. However, that assumption used to be true. In a lot of cases, it's not so much anymore. SkyTrain value is front loaded. Most of the appreciation happens years before the train actually arrives. By the time routes are approved and stations are announced, the market has already priced it in. And we're really seeing that in Langley. Homes near the proposed SkyTrain corridor already trade at a premium. Buyers know it's coming. Sellers know what's coming, developers know what's coming. So the upside people are betting on is already partially gone. And this is the mistake I see constantly. People say, I'll buy near the SkyTrain and cash out when it opens. Well, that may have worked 20 years ago. However, it does not work the same way in 2026. Now let's talk about the stigma nobody addresses. SkyTrain and safety. Statistically, crime is down. However, some families associate SkyTrain proximity with more foot traffic, higher density, less privacy, and more unknowns. Is that fair? Not always. Does it affect buyer psychology? Absolutely. And psychology impacts value, especially in a market where buyers have options. In hot markets, stigma doesn't really matter. However, in balanced markets, it really does. That's why the SkyTrain can be a double-edged sword. For condos and rentals, a SkyTrain is usually pretty positive. However, for higher end family homes, it can be neutral, and in some cases, a very strong negative. If a detached home loses its quietness, privacy, parking, or street character, demand can shift away. Families spending 1.3 to 1.6 million are not transit dependent. They care more about lifestyle. So here's the uncomfortable truth. Some SkyTrain-adjacent pricing in Langley is already optimistic. Not insane, but optimistic. The market is assuming a smooth completion, clean stations, no spillover issues, and perfect execution. If reality falls short, appreciation doesn't disappear, it just massively underperforms. And underperformance is how people feel stuck. That's why a lot of people would say they thought it would go up more. That's not failure, that's an expectation mismatch. Now let's zoom out a little bit. Langley is not one market. Willoughby condos behave differently than Brookswood detached, and townhomes behave differently than condos, and new construction behaves differently than resale. And the reality of it is, with 1,100 active listings, bad product really gets exposed. Overpriced listings sit, poor layouts sit, homes backing busy roads sit, properties priced on 2022 logic sit. But the good news is, good homes will still sell. This is a quality market right now, not a hype market. Now let's talk investors. Rising inventory plus flat prices plus high rates equals zero margin for error. That's why speculative investors are gone. There's no bidding wars, there's no free appreciation, and there's no easy exits. The investors still active are very disciplined. They're cash flow focused and they're thinking long term, 5, 10, 15 years at least. It's not bearish. That's healthy. Speculation leaving a market is how stability returns. So what happens next? This is not a prediction, it's more probability. Inventory stays elevated, prices grind sideways, sellers compete harder, buyers stay selective, and Langley doesn't implode, it just grinds. And grind markets reward thinking and not speed. So here's who wins in Langley now. Families buying long-term, not stretching, buyers negotiating hard, sellers pricing honestly, and investors not relying on appreciation alone. Here's who loses. Anyone stuck in 2021 logic. Biggest mistake I see people making is saying, it's Langley, it'll be fine. However, that sentence costs people tens of thousands of dollars. Langley is no longer forgiving. You need to understand the micro area, the product type, the buyer profile, the exit plan. Otherwise, you're completely gambling. So let's summarize this cleanly. Langley in 2025 to 2026, inventory is up 55% since 2023. Price growth is flat. Crime is at 25-year lows. The SkyTrain optimism is already priced in. Buyers are in control and speculation is completely gone. That's not fear, that is clarity. And clarity can be power. So if you want a straight numbers-based breakdown of whether it makes sense to buy, sell, or hold in Langley, or whether SkyTrain proximity helps or hurts a specific property, just shoot me a text at 604-288-7592. No pressure, no hype, just facts. And if you enjoyed this video, hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.